A major American news network just handed a microphone and 4 uninterrupted minutes of airtime to one of America's most dangerous enemies, and the White House just exploded. It started as a normal news cycle. Tensions between the United States and Iran had been simmering for weeks. Diplomatic back channels were quiet, military assets were repositioning, and then CNN made a decision that would set Washington on fire. CNN aired 4 minutes of Iranian state television, uninterrupted, unfiltered, and without meaningful editorial pushback. 4 minutes. On American airwaves, of content produced and controlled by the Islamic Republic of Iran, a government the United States designates as a state sponsor of terrorism. The White House did not stay quiet. Within hours, an official statement dropped, and it was incendiary. They called Iran, quote, the same psychotic and murderous regime that has prided itself on brutally slaughtering Americans. Those were not diplomatic words. That was a declaration of fury. Let those words sink in. Psychotic, murderous, brutally slaughtering Americans. This is the official language of the United States government, used not to describe an enemy on a battlefield, but to describe the subject of a CNN broadcast. The message from the White House was unmistakable. CNN just gave airtime to killers. To understand why this matters, you need to understand what Iranian state television actually is. It is not a free press. It is not independent journalism. It is a propaganda arm, fully controlled, fully funded, and fully direct. The White House's reference to Americans being brutally slaughtered was not rhetoric. It was history. From the 1979 hostage crisis, 444 days of American diplomats held captive, to the funding of militias that killed U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, the record of the Iranian regime is written in American blood. But there's another layer to this story, perhaps even more stunning. CNN didn't just air the footage. CNN sent journalists inside Iran. The Iranian government granted access. They opened the door. They chose their moment. And CNN walked in. Here's the question that nobody in mainstream media wants to ask out loud. When an authoritarian regime grants media access, what do they want in return? Iran is not naive. They don't open their borders to American journalists out of goodwill. Access is a tool. Access is a message. Access is propaganda with a press credential attached. Media ethicists are divided. Some argue that journalism requires going where the story is, even into hostile territory. That sunlight is the best disinfectant. That showing Americans what Iranian state media says is inherently valuable. Others argue that airing 4 minutes of state propaganda uninterrupted crosses a line. That you don't give a megaphone to a regime without context, without challenge, without truth. Washington erupted. Republicans lined up to condemn CNN. Some called it treasonous, some called it naive, some called it both. Democrats were largely silent, which, in Washington, is itself a statement. On social media, the reaction was instant and volcanic. Hashtag CNN Iran trended within the hour. Clips of the broadcast were shared millions of times, ironically giving the content far more reach than CNN's original airing ever did. The outrage machine had been switched on, and it was running at full power. CNN pushed back. Network representatives argued that covering what Iranian state media broadcasts is journalism, not endorsement. That American audiences deserve to know what adversary nations are saying. That context was provided. That editorial independence requires going where the story lives, regardless of political pressure. But here's where the argument gets complicated. Precedent matters in journalism. If CNN can air Iranian state TV, what's the line? North Korean state TV? Russian RT? Where does covering what adversaries say end and amplifying enemy propaganda begin? These are not hypothetical questions. They are the questions that define the future of American media in an information war. Make no mistake, Iran's decision to grant CNN access was not accidental. Tehran is sophisticated in its media strategy. They granted access at a specific moment for a specific reason. The question is, what did they want the American people to see? And more importantly, what did they want the American people to feel? We are living in an information war, not a Cold War, not a proxy war, an information war, where the weapons are narratives, the battlefields are screens, and the casualties are truth and public perception. Every major adversary of the United States, Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, has invested massively in information operations targeting American audiences. This isn't the first time American media has faced this dilemma. During World War II, the Office of War Information regulated what could be broadcast. During the Cold War, Soviet propaganda was covered, but rarely aired raw and uncontested. The question of how a free press handles enemy messaging is as old as the concept of a free press itself. Journalists who've covered Iran say the access itself was extraordinary and revealing. Military analysts say the timing was deliberate, designed to send a message to Washington during a sensitive moment in nuclear negotiations. Former intelligence officials say the broadcast served Iranian interests more than American ones. The debate is real, the stakes are higher, and the timing of all of this cannot be ignored. Iran's nuclear program is accelerating. US and Iranian negotiators have been locked in tense back-channel talks. Military planners on both sides are gaming out scenarios. In this environment, the broadcast of Iranian state media on American television is not just a media ethics story. It is a national security story. The White House's statement wasn't just about CNN. It was a signal to Iran, to US allies, to the American public. We see what you are doing. We are naming it, and we will not stay silent. Whether that signal lands is another question. But make no mistake, this confrontation between the press and the executive branch over enemy state media access is a preview of battles to come. At its core, this story is about one of the oldest tensions in American democracy: the First Amendment versus national security. A free press has the right to broadcast what it chooses. The government has the obligation to protect its people. When those two imperatives collide, there are no easy answers, only consequences. And underneath all of this runs a deeper current: trust. Public trust in American media is at historic lows. Gallup polling consistently shows that fewer than 1 in 4 Americans trust mass media. Every controversy, from bias allegations to this moment, chips away further. CNN's decision, whatever the editorial justification, lands in that context. And that context is brutal. So where does this go? Congress is already talking about hearings. The FCC has been mentioned. First Amendment lawyers are sharpening their briefs. And Iran, watching all of this unfold, is almost certainly pleased. Because a divided America arguing about its own free press is exactly the kind of chaos Tehran's information strategists dream about. Step back, look at the full picture. A hostile regime granted access to an American network at a strategically critical moment. That network aired their content uninterrupted. The White House responded with language usually reserved for declarations of war. Social media amplified everything. And millions of Americans are now consuming and arguing about Iranian-produced content. Whoever designed this outcome got exactly what they wanted. This story is not over. The debate about media, propaganda, and national security in the age of information warfare is only beginning. Stay informed, think critically, question everything, including us. Subscribe for more stories that go deeper than the headlines. Hit the bell. Because in an information war, the most powerful weapon you have is an informed mind.